Welcome back, my nerdling army. Bannick 13 here, and today I'm going to address a few questions that I've been getting a lot of lately, especially during the early stages of Season 5, and that is, how can you push for Greater Rifts 60 plus? And the answer is, well, to me, Greater Rift 60 is really easy. Like, I don't struggle with 60 at all. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain to the best of my ability some of the changes I've made to my gear, the skills I use, and some other little variations that I've thrown in there. I'll explain everything in depth so that you guys, if you're missing something, you'll identify it straight away. If you're doing exactly the same thing that I do once I explain it, and there's nothing that you can change to tweak your gear or your damage, then hit me up in the comments. Be specific about your problem and I'll try and help you to the best of my ability. But I'll just go through skills, gear, Canai's Cube, and my follower, everything that contributes to overall damage in Greater Rifts, because Greater Rifts is all about damage output. So our primary skills all stay the same, just like I did in my build video for Unhallowed Essence. You know, Evasive Fire, Multi-Shot with Arsenal, Vault with Tumble, Vengeance with Seethe, obviously for 2.4 is new, but I have gone into that in my build video. Preparation with Invigoration, Companion with Wolf Companion, all that stays the same. I've made no adjustments there whatsoever. We'll talk about our passives. Ambush you definitely must have. This is huge. You know, enemies above 75% health, as soon as you hit them, you do that much. You do 40% additional damage. You know, that's huge. It already gives you a boost on killing these enemies. Colour of the Week I'll get into a bit more with my gear as well, but this is absolutely vital. You know, enemies that are slowed, we do 20% increased damage. Alright, so this goes hand in hand with Bane of the Trapped, our gem, and it also goes hand in hand with Thrill of the Hunt, which I have here. So definitely have Colour of the Week. Steady aim, obviously we're a ranged class, we don't really want melee enemies coming close to us and doing damage, so we'll be vaulting out of the way a lot, and we'll pretty much always be at least 10 yards. Like 10 yards in the game world is really not much at all. We'll be probably 30 to 40 yards away most of the time. Definitely have steady aim. And Thrill of the Hunt I've got here. You're probably thinking, why hasn't he got ballistics? Ballistics is definitely something that is more important than Thrill of the Hunt, and you definitely have it over Thrill of the Hunt. But when we go to my gear, you can see my Hellfire Amulet. I've got ballistics there, which brings me to my next point. And we'll move into gear right now, but starting with your amulet, you definitely want a Hellfire Amulet, and you want your Hellfire Amulet to have 20% fire damage no matter what. Alright, make sure you get 20% fire damage. When I say 20%, I don't mean 18 or 19. Keep enchanting this item until you get 20% fire damage, and make sure that you have a passive, one of your primary passives. So obviously ballistics is something we use a lot with our multi-shot build. I was lucky enough to roll it with my Hellfire Amulet, so I've gone with Thrill of the Hunt for extra enemies to be slowed down. Alright, and that increases our damage because of Colour of the Week and because of Bane of the Trap down here. So we must be slowing down enemies, and that definitely helps. So while we're here with gear, a few things you might not have optimized, I don't know. Like I said, you have to be really specific with me. But starting with the Helm, obviously an ancient one is great, but make sure that you get that multi-shot damage by 15%, no matter what. That's the most important here. You know, the other thing that would be great for this Helm in particular is crit chance. I don't have crit chance, but hey, we can't have everything in every item. But it just goes to show that even though this isn't a perfect roll, I can still do a Greater Rift 60 very, very easily. And I'll show you guys at the end of this video how I run through a Greater Rift 60, just so you know I'm not talking shit, that I've actually done this myself and that I can easily do it. Alright, so make sure you have 15% multi-shot damage on your Helm if you haven't already. We've already talked about the Hellfire Amulet. Make sure that you get 20% fire damage, and make sure that you have a passive that you can use, one of the primary passives as a multi-shot demon hunter. Shoulders, now definitely go with cooldown reduction for shoulders. We're going 8%. Once again, not 6, not 7%, we're going 8%. With gloves, much of the same thing. You'll make sure you have crit chance or crit damage, and choose the least helpful skill to convert to cooldown reduction. Alright, make sure we get 8% cooldown reduction. Cooldown reduction is huge for our vengeance. Alright, very, very huge. And the reason you want 8% on both of these, not 7, not 6, is because I've actually cut down my cooldown reduction. Alright, I've made it minimal, basically because over here when we get to focus and restraint, obviously the necessary rings, you can see focus, I've got crit chance and crit damage, so I'm going for full damage with my rings here, and Bane of the Stricken is one of the gems that I'm using as well. So just make sure that you can keep up Vengeance almost 100% of the time. I've got maybe a couple seconds where Vengeance has actually worn off on my character and it's not ready for it to be activated again, but I can survive 2 seconds, no problem. I'd rather the extra damage. Alright, so same goes for restraint here. Critical hit damage, critical hit chance, and dexterity, so max damage, and that's where my Bane of the Trapped is. The other gem that we're using is Zaystone of Vengeance that you can see there. This is absolutely huge. As I mentioned, you're a ranged class. You should be always away from your enemies, and this does extra damage the further away you are, so definitely a huge one there. Chest piece, pretty self-explanatory, dexterity, and the main thing you need to focus on here is in your secondary stats. See how I've got 12 maximum discipline? This is huge when we activate invigoration. Alright, so when we activate preparation invigoration, this increases our damage, because we've got 12 max discipline. So I mean, if you have a look at your 6th set bonus, the 6th one at the bottom there, it says your generator's multi-shot vengeance deal 20% increased damage for every point of discipline you have. So every extra discipline that we have increases our damage, and once we activate preparation invigoration, all of these secondary stats come into play for extra damage. So very important there for your chest piece. Your Wraps of Clarity, again, please make sure that you get 20% fire damage, not 18, not 19, get 20. Alright. We've gone through our rings, our pants, self-explanatory, nothing really out of the ordinary here. Yang's recurve, make sure you get an ancient. If you haven't got an ancient, I've done a video on how you can get that perfect ancient item, and that is using Kanai's Cube. So if you've got a Yang's recurve, then we can use Kanai's Cube and keep reforging the legendary until we get an ancient. Alright, and again, make sure that we have a secondary stat with maximum discipline. This one's got 9. I can always go back and roll 12, but 9 is enough. If you haven't got some sort of max discipline buff in your secondary slot, then this item's no good. Keep re-rolling it, keep reforging it until you have a max discipline in your secondary slot, preferably 12. Alright, 12 is the maximum you can get. 12 would be great. But make sure your Yang's recurve is an ancient, because the damage increase is just ridiculous. You'll do probably 30-35% extra damage just from getting this ancient Yang's recurve. Boots, same as Helm, make sure that we get multi-shot damage by 15%. All the other stats are, not as important, but definitely want dexterity, vitality, movement, speed isn't that important, but this is just the way mine rolls, so hey, that's great. I can put more points in Paragon dexterity, but make sure, very importantly, multi-shot damage by 15%, and that is 15%, not 13, not 14. Make sure you get 15. And Dead Man's Legacy, self-explanatory, again, it should have secondary maximum discipline there. I haven't even got a ancient item for Dead Man's Legacy, so it just goes to show that you don't need all ancient items, but that pretty much covers our gear. I can't, and the belt. I've gone for Witching Hour for max damage, alright? So Witching Hour is a good damage output belt that you could be using. This definitely takes over the old belt, which I can't remember what it was called, that we used to use for multi-shot before patch 2.4. Definitely go with Witching Hour. It's a great damage output belt, and that covers all of our gear. I mean, I don't know if there's anything you guys are missing there. If you're not sure about anything, just ask me in the comments, but I've gone pretty much through every piece in depth. There's nothing much more I have to say about that. While we're here, we'll go through Paragon Points just in case you guys are doing something wrong. Make sure we have 25% total movement speed. Alright, so I've got 15 here and I've got 10 on my boots, so that's 25 total. That's enough, and everything else goes in dexterity. Certainly everything into dexterity. Offense, we want to start, depending on what Paragon level you're on at the moment, you might not have as much as me. You'll have to start with crit damage here. Invest all your points into crit damage, then critical hit chance, and then cooldown reduction. Keeping in mind that I'm talking about specifically for greater rifts, alright? So cooldown reduction is important. If you're doing anything else, you'd probably go cooldown reduction first, but if you're looking for greater rifts, then you definitely have to maximize your critical hit damage. It's huge for Demon Hunters, critical hit damage. Defense, yeah, resist all first, then armor, then life. And utility, we want to go with resource cost reduction first, then area damage, and then life on hit. These two aren't that important. The core and offensive definitely are. Now, Canai's Cube, I'll have a look here. So Weapon Dawn, obviously for the cooldown of our Vengeance. There's nothing really we can put in there to increase damage or anything like that. Syndicate to reduce the cost of our fire skills. And Jewelry, we want Elusive Ring, and this pretty much decreases our damage taken by 60% every time we vault. Right, so you'll be vaulting quite often, and if you're not, make sure you vault every 8 seconds, because if you do get hit, make sure that you've got that 60% damage reduction buff activated at all times. And after Canai's Cube, I need to talk about the follower. The follower is actually very, very, very important for solo greater rifts. Now what you want, basically, is going to work hand in hand with our Bane of the Trapped and Cull of the Weak, so the more enemies that are slowed, the more damage we do, and Thrill of the Hunt now. Make sure that we have this relic equipped on follower. Your follower cannot die. Make sure you have the follower cannot die relic. If you haven't got it, there's an easy way to get it. You can craft relics, yellow relics at the blacksmith, and then you just convert them into legendary items. Keep converting them until you get one that has that your follower cannot die secondary stat. It's very important because now our follower cannot die. The other important thing is make sure you have Thunder Fury equipped. Basically, why you have this is once that lightning bolt skips from enemy to enemy, it also will trigger Intimidate onto all those enemies. So the Templar will be slowing enemies for us, and as we're doing damage, multi-shotting targets from further away, from a ranged distance, we're doing extra damage and triggering that Bane of the Trapped and Cull of the Weak, extra damage against slowed enemies. Alright, so this is huge. Definitely have Intimidate. And the other items aren't really that important, but I've gone with the S of Johan just because it has that 60% chance to pull enemies towards the target. So as the Templar's there slicing up enemies and triggering the Intimidate with his Thunder Fury, he'll also suck all the enemies towards him, and then we can just hit him really easily with our multi-shot and just take him out that much quicker. Alright, the other ones, rings and shield, aren't that important. Obviously aim for strength and high damage sort of stuff, but these three definitely are, especially Thunder Fury and the relic. Alright. Other than that, I can't really think of much else to tell you guys and give you any more tips. Just watch my playstyle, the way that I play through this in a moment. I'll show you how I can easily get through a greater Rift 60. Watch how I do things, and maybe if you're doing something wrong, hit me up in the comments, let me know, and I'll give you some advice. Like I said, you've got to be specific because I don't know exactly what's going wrong, because Greater Rift 60 is just so easy for me. So check out the video that I do and how I clear it, and I hope that this helps, really. If there's anything that I haven't covered or that you're not sure about, let me know in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. Otherwise, I'm pretty confident that we can push all you guys up to Greater Rift level 60 and beyond. You know, the problem just might be that you guys haven't leveled up your Paragon points high enough just yet. It could be as simple as that. I don't know. I'm not too sure what the issue is, but you guys will have to let me know in the comments. So I hope this was helpful. Enjoy the video coming up, and I'll see you all again real soon.